In this video, we'll talk about the process for welcoming new guests for your cafe and how to capture information about them in Agency. So a guest is someone who comes to your cafe because they're interested in learning more about the cafe and potentially becoming a member. In the Recovery Cafe model, we distinguish between guests and visitors. So unlike a guest, a visitor is someone who is not potentially becoming a member. They're coming to the cafe for a different purpose, such as perhaps they're a community partner or a funder there for a meeting. Visitors won't go through this process to have an agency profile created. They'll be signed in a different way that we'll talk about in the introduction to the front door video. This video will be focusing on guests. So a new person walks through the door of your cafe and you're at the front desk. You'll greet them with radical hospitality, introduce yourself, ask what brings them to the cafe, and share a little bit about what the cafe is about. If the person's interested in learning more, you can welcome them to be a guest for the day so that they can visit the space and think about if becoming a member is the right fit for them. When someone decides they want to be a guest for the day, you'll take a couple minutes to sit down with them, tell them a little bit more about the cafe, what it means to be a member, the membership agreements, and ask them to complete a guest enrollment form. After this sit-down conversation, we'd suggest offering your new guest a tour, a cup of coffee, and maybe a warm introduction to a member leader or a community volunteer who'd be free to sit and chat with them a little longer to make sure that they feel welcome. So back to that guest enrollment form, which again is filled out before somebody comes into the cafe as a guest for the very first time. So a template of this is available in the content library. Our template is set up as a half sheet, trying to keep this to a minimal amount of information to avoid overwhelming newcomers. At Recovery Cafe Seattle, we print this out on yellow paper, just as an extra warm and welcoming touch. So your guest form will allow you to create a profile for your guests in Agency, and you'll then be able to sign them in at the front door each time they come to the cafe as a guest. And the benefit of this is that it helps you to maintain your space as a membership community. You'll have records to help you see how many times your guests have visited before, and after that third visit, be able to remind your guests of how many times they visited and that they'll need to attend new member introduction to officially become a member to continue accessing the cafe. So now I'm going to show the process for creating a profile for our new guest. So I'm going to click this link, Add a Member, to start their profile. This person isn't yet a member, but the profile that I'm starting now will be used later on to add in their additional information and show that they became a member after they go to new member introduction. So right now this person is just a guest. I'm going to type in their last name, their first name, and their date of birth. After I click Submit here, Agency will do a check for possible duplicates. Since it took me right to this screen, I know that it didn't find any possible matches, but if it does, it'll show a list of individuals with matching names or dates of birth to review to see if somebody might have already been added to the system. Just a note, though, that that process isn't foolproof since it relies on having an exact match of name or date of birth, and it's always possible someone might provide different information to you on a later visit. So if you ever do accidentally make a profile for someone you later learn had one already, that's okay, it happens. Send an email to support@recoverycafenetwork.org with the ID numbers for the original profile and the duplicate profile, and then we can merge those for you on the back end. But now back to our guest, Fred Flintstone. I'm now at a page to add some more details about him. Since he's just a guest and all I know about him is what he answered on his guest enrollment form, I don't know the answers to most of these questions. So I'm going to go ahead and leave things blank or mark as unknown, except for the information that was provided on the guest form. So I'm scrolling down through here, again marking unknown as needed. This information that I am marking as unknown or skipping here, I'll be able to go back and add in later after this person goes to new member introduction and fills out a full enrollment form. So my profile has now been created. I'm going to click on this person's name to load up their profile. So this here now is a guest profile. Nothing else needs to be done on their profile, although again, once they go to new member introduction, you'll come back here to add more details. So I'm gonna now go and sign in this member as a guest for the day so that I can log that entry on their profile so we can keep track of how many times this person's visited. So I'm gonna click on the front door page here. We're gonna talk more about the front door page in the later training, Introduction to the Front Door. But for now, I am gonna show adding this guest entry so we can see how it logs on the profile. So in this record a member's entry box, again, this person's not yet a member, they're still a guest, but they'll still be signed in that box. Once I find their match, this person's going to come up as yellow because they're not currently enrolled as a circle, so they're not a member. If they had visited as a guest before, their prior guest entries would be listed here, again, to help you see how many times and when someone had been a guest before. But since this is their first visit, there's nothing listed here. And I'm going to go ahead and click this button, Add Entry and Guest Record for this member, which will log on their profile that they visited the cafe and that their visit today was a guest visit. So this green box is a confirmation page that the entry and guest record were posted. I'm now going to click on this member's profile to, again, just show how this will be captured. So you'll be able to see a list of prior guest visits on the front door page when signing somebody in, but they'll also be logged on the member's profile under Cafe Service Record.